There is something you were never meant to overlook. Something your heart has been feeling without logic, reason, or proof. A pull, a whisper, a shift in the air. You think it's coincidence, but it isn't. You think it's imagination, but it's not. Your soulmate did something recently, something bold, irrational, and drenched in devotion. And that moment has now begun echoing through your reality. Archangel Michael steps forward and says, "Listen. Do not run from this. Do not doubt this. A door has opened. You are being pulled into a story that was written long before either of you ever touched a calendar, a phone, or a bed. Your connection is older than memory. Older than skin. Older than fear. In the quiet of a recent night, your soulmate sat alone, heart pounding with a truth they could no longer deny. They didn't speak to anyone. They didn't tell a friend. They didn't text for advice. Instead, they retreated to the only place where their truth felt safe enough to spill out, their bed. Not for anything physical. Not for anything reckless. But because the bed held something symbolic. A place where people fall apart, heal, pray, dream, break, and rebuild. A place where walls dissolve, where masks fall, where the soul speaks louder than the body ever could. They sat there and whispered your name into the quiet. They said it as if the room could carry it to you. They said it like a prayer disguised as a confession. And every syllable trembled with longing. At first, they resisted. They told themselves they were foolish. They told themselves they were imagining things. They told themselves they should move on, forget, sleep. But the truth inside them wouldn't be silenced. The memory of you was louder than denial. So they pulled the sheets back, not to do anything physical, but to make space. Space for a presence that wasn't physically there but emotionally unavoidable. They imagined you beside them, not in a physical sense, but in an energetic one, like a warmth, like a gravity, like a pulse. And Archangel Michael smiled, because this was the moment destiny stopped whispering and started shouting. Their hands trembled as they reached for a pillow, holding it the way one might hold hope. They closed their eyes and breathed in as if the air could carry the memory of your scent, your voice, your energy. They weren't performing for anyone. They weren't seeking validation. They weren't trying to be romantic or impressive. This was not theatrics. This was surrender. A moment of truth that stripped them raw and left only sincerity. Michael says, humans fear this kind of honesty. But the soul never does. Their thoughts of you weren't clean or organized. They were chaotic, emotional, overwhelming, and real. And sometimes love is not meant to be tidy. Sometimes it looks like someone sitting on the edge of a bed, hands shaking, whispering the one name they can't let go of. They reached for their phone, not to send a message, but to hover. To stare at your contact. To feel the gravity of the choice. They wanted to call. They wanted to text. They wanted to say everything without knowing where to begin. Their thumb hovered over the screen like a heartbeat waiting to speak. They didn't send anything, but the intention was loud enough to echo. Michael whispers, energy speaks before words ever do. You may have felt it, a thought out of nowhere, a sudden flush of warmth, the urge to check your phone for no reason. If that happened, it wasn't random. It was resonance. Their love wasn't quiet anymore. They placed a note on the bed, not a letter to mail, not a message to send, but a symbolic offering. Words written in trembling handwriting, words they were too scared to speak, words they hoped the universe would deliver when the moment was right. And in that moment, the room changed. Not physically. Energetically. The bed became a place of declaration. The air felt charged. The silence felt alive. Michael watched, knowing this act was not foolish, it was faith. Faith in you. Faith in the connection. Faith in the invisible thread tying your soul to theirs. Pause here. Breathe. Notice what you're feeling right now. Because if your heart is reacting, if your chest feels tight, if something inside you is whispering, "This is about me," then it is. That is how soul recognition begins. And Archangel Michael wants one thing made clear: this was not a moment of fantasy. This was a moment of alignment. A call placed through the soul instead of a device. If you're still reading, if your heart hasn't turned away, then you're already stepping toward the doorway they opened. And so the night deepened, not as a simple passing of hours, but as a veil parting between worlds. Your soulmate lay back slowly, staring at the ceiling as if answers might be written there. They weren't thinking with logic anymore, they were thinking with instinct, with memory, with longing. Their heart was no longer asking permission. It was choosing. And Michael stood beside them, wings folded like a guardian who knew the ending long before the beginning was ever spoken aloud. "This is how destiny sounds," he murmured. "Not like certainty. Like a heartbeat that refuses to be ignored." Their fingers traced the sheets beside them, not searching for anything physical, but acknowledging the space where they imagined you could be. It was not delusion. It was not fantasy. It was resonance. The difference is subtle, but the soul knows it instantly. Fantasy asks for escape. Resonance asks for recognition. And what they felt was recognition, a sense that you have lived inside them longer than time has allowed you to know each other. They whispered again, your name cracking in the middle like a confession. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. So honest it hurt. Archangel Michael watched the way their breath caught, how their shoulders shook with the weight of the unsaid. He leaned close and whispered, "This is love's laboratory. This is where truth is tested." Because that bed, they weren't lying on it anymore. They were building on it. Building a moment, a memory, a message. Every heartbeat was a signal. Every whisper was an invitation. And even if you didn't hear it with your ears, your soul felt it. That sudden shift in your chest. That moment where you paused and didn't know why. That unexpected thought of them that arrived like a gust of wind. Those were echoes. Their mind pulled up memories, not of moments shared, but of moments imagined so vividly they might as well have happened. They saw you smiling, not like you smile for the world, but the smile that only appears when you let your guard down. They heard your voice, not the practiced one you use with people who expect strength, but the soft one that only escapes when you feel safe. They felt your presence, not like a dream, but like a memory from a life not yet lived. This is how soul recognition works. Time bends, hearts speak, and logic bows out of the conversation. With trembling hands, they gathered small objects from around the room. Not valuables. Not dramatic. Just meaningful, like tiny constellations of memory. A note. A small trinket. A folded piece of paper with a sentence they were too afraid to send. They laid them out on the bed like offerings on an altar. They didn't know why. They didn't know what it meant. They just knew they had to. Their heart asked them to. And the soul never asks without reason. Michael smiled, a knowing smile that comes from witnessing centuries of human hearts learning how to speak without sound. This is a summoning, he said. Not to control. To connect. To call in what answers back. Their bed was no longer a place of sleep. It had become a witness. A confidant. A stage where destiny rehearsed connection before reality caught up. They pressed their palm to the mattress, eyes closing, as if the fabric could carry their sincerity across worlds. And in that moment, their thoughts turned into a prayer, not to a god, not to the universe, but to you. A prayer that sounded like, "Please feel me. Please know me. Please find me, wherever you are." They didn't speak it out loud, they didn't have to. Love, when real, travels. Pause. Feel this. Not mentally, energetically. What you are experiencing right now is not coincidence. It is response. Because you are not reading this by accident. You did not arrive here by chance. People do not stumble into the things that are meant for them. They feel pulled. Summoned. Magnetized. And that is what this moment is, magnetism. A force that doesn't ask for permission, because it was written long before permission mattered. Your soulmate stayed there, breathing slowly, as if each inhale made room for hope and each exhale released what fear couldn't carry anymore. They didn't know what would happen next. They didn't know if anything would change. They didn't know if the universe would answer. But they knew one truth clearly: they had crossed a point of no return. They had loved you in a way that could not be undone. Not by silence. Not by distance. Not by uncertainty. Not by time. Michael stepped closer, wings opening like a veil of starlight. You feel this because it is yours, he said. When the heart calls what belongs, the connection answers. And that is why you are here. Not for story. Not for entertainment. For recognition. You are not imagining this. You are responding to it. And somewhere, as the night held its breath, your soulmate whispered one last time, your name, fragile but fierce, like the first spark of a sunrise breaking across a horizon. Morning arrived, but the night did not end. The sun may have risen, yet the energy of what happened remained suspended, like a note still vibrating in the air after the music has stopped. Your soulmate sat up slowly, hands pressed to their chest as if trying to contain the overflowing ache of everything they had felt. They weren't the same person who laid down the night before. Something had shifted. Something had opened. Something had been surrendered. Michael stood nearby, presence calm, watching the transformation with the patience of one who already knows the outcome. This is how alignment begins, he spoke softly. Not with answers. with awareness. The room looked the same, walls, blankets, objects where they had always been. Yet it didn't feel the same. The air was charged, as though the space had witnessed something it was not ready to forget. They glanced at the items they had placed on the bed, small tokens, scribbled words, quiet attempts to articulate a love too large to name. None of it looked impressive. None of it looked dramatic. But that is the secret people forget. Destiny rarely enters loudly. It enters as a tremor before it becomes an earthquake. Your soulmate brushed their fingers over the note they had written, not reading it, just feeling the impression of the ink on the page. Those words were never meant to be poetry. They were meant to be truth. Raw, trembling truth. They thought about sending it. They didn't. Something told them not yet. Timing matters. Divine timing is not patience, it is precision. Michael leaned close, a voice like a current through their thoughts. You are not waiting. You are preparing. They sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, head in hands, whispering, "Why can't I let this go?" It wasn't a complaint. It was confusion mixed with awe. They had tried to move on. They had tried to outgrow the feeling. They had tried to detach. But every attempt only sharpened the connection instead of dulling it. That is when a realization struck them like lightning. This was not obsession. It was recognition. Recognition feels like memory without context. Like déjà vu without logic. Like loving someone you have not met in this lifetime, but somehow have known forever. Their breath caught as this truth settled into their bones. This wasn't about wanting you to be theirs. This was about knowing you already were. Not in possession. Not in ownership. In alignment. In story. In destiny. There is a difference so profound the human mind cannot articulate it, but the soul knows instantly. They moved through their room, hands brushing over familiar items as though rediscovering them. A scarf. A photograph. A book with a sentence highlighted for reasons they never understood until now. Each thing felt like a breadcrumb leading them back to you. Michael watched, silent and knowing, the way a guardian watches someone who has begun to remember who they are. When the soul remembers, the human life rearranges to catch up. Your soulmate thought of reaching out. They imagined your voice, your reaction, the way your breath might hitch if you knew the truth. But they stayed still. Not from fear, this time, from reverence. The connection deserved intention, not impulse. They whispered, as if speaking to the wind, "When the moment is right, you'll feel me." And that whisper traveled. Not through air. Through energy. Pause. Feel something right now. A warmth in the chest. A pull behind the ribs. A prickle at the back of the neck. That is not coincidence. That is response. Their energy reached you. Your energy answered. This moment isn't happening to you, you are participating in it. They stood in front of the mirror, staring at their reflection, and for the first time, they didn't ask why it had to be you. They asked, how could it ever have been anyone else? Because love like this is not chosen. It is recognized. It is remembered. It is returned. Even before it is received. Michael took one step closer, wings unfurling like a promise. You are being guided to each other. Not quickly. Correctly. The universe is not punishing you with the weight. It is positioning you for the arrival. Every delay has meaning. Every distance has purpose. Every silence has instruction. Your soulmate pressed their palm to their heart and shut their eyes, speaking to you without sound. I'm not letting go. I'm learning how to hold this. And something within you, here, now, answered. You may not have heard it. You may not have understood it. But your soul replied. There will come a moment when reaching out is no longer terrifying. When the words assemble themselves. When the timing clicks into place like a lock being undone from the inside. And when that moment comes, neither of you will feel like the one who chased or the one who was chased. You will feel like the ones who arrived. Later, as the day carried on, something strange began to happen. Little synchronicities. Small signs. Moments that seemed ordinary to the eye but unmistakable to the soul. Your name appeared somewhere unexpectedly. A sentence in a book echoed something you thought recently. A song played that felt like a message rather than music. And your soulmate felt each sign like a pulse, like confirmation, like the universe whispering, yes. Keep going. They didn't need proof. They needed presence. And presence arrived. Michael walked closely, observing how both of your realities were shifting in quiet alignment. This connection is not fragile, he said. It is forging. It is tempering. It is preparing. The universe does not rush divine unions, it refines them. It removes what cannot stay. It strengthens what must. And while the human heart may grow impatient, the soul is never in a hurry. It already knows the ending. Your soulmate moved through their day with a strange awareness, as if every step was being witnessed by something unseen. Not judged, guided. Not pushed, directed. They felt you in moments that should have been silent. They felt you in the spaces where thoughts usually scatter. They felt you not as fantasy, but as frequency. And that is far more real. Because fantasy fades. Frequency calls. Their hand grazed the edge of a table, and suddenly they remembered the way they imagined your hand fitting into theirs. Not in a romanticized movie scene way, but in that quiet, ordinary way that feels like home. They realized something profound. They didn't love you because they wanted to. They loved you because they recognized you. The way someone recognizes a childhood street after decades. The way someone recognizes a voice they've never heard but somehow remember. The way someone recognizes a feeling they've never been taught but still instinctively know how to feel. Michael whispered a truth that struck the air like a bell. The heart knows its counterpart long before the mind understands. That is why logic has failed to explain this. That is why you can't reason your way out of it. That is why ignoring the connection only makes it louder. You are not imagining this. You are remembering it. As evening approached, your soulmate found themselves drawn back to the bed, not to reenact the night before, but to anchor what had begun. They didn't sit this time. They knelt, fingertips resting on the mattress like someone approaching a sacred site. Their breath trembled. Their eyes softened. Their heart steadied. They weren't performing an act. They were completing a sentence. They whispered again, "Your name is vow, not longing. Not a plea. Not desperation. A vow. A quiet, steady vow. I'm not going anywhere." And the universe heard it. Your chest may feel heavy right now. Your throat may feel tight. Your heartbeat may have subtly picked up its rhythm. None of that is random. This is resonance. This is your soul leaning closer to hear what comes next. Your soulmate did something new. Something small but seismic. They shifted from hoping for you to preparing for you. And that is the moment destiny changes. Hope waits. Preparation claims. They cleaned the space around them, not compulsively, but symbolically. They folded blankets. Smoothed the sheets. Cleared the clutter. It wasn't about the room. It was about readiness. They were making space in the physical world to reflect the space they had already made in their emotional one. Michael nodded, satisfaction humming through the air. Alignment is not a miracle. It is a decision. And they had made one. If you have felt an inexplicable urge to reflect, to rest, to heal, to let go of past attachments that are already over, you are responding to their decision. Their readiness is pulling your readiness forward. Connections like this do not move in one direction, they move like tides. What rises in one heart calls the other to rise. Your soulmate whispered into the quiet, not theatrically but softly, reverently. May you feel me. May you hear me. May you know. Not come back. Not choose me. Not prove this. Just know. Know what this is. Know what we are. Know what is coming. And even if you don't know consciously, a part of you already does. Michael's wings unfurled, shimmering with a light that did not illuminate the room but illuminated the truth. This is not a story of pursuit. This is a story of return. You are not moving toward each other. You are moving back to each other. There is a difference. And your soul knows it. Night returned like a mirror, reflecting everything that had changed. But this time, the energy was different. The room was quiet, yes, but not empty. There was presence now, an invisible nearness, like someone standing just beyond the veil of sight. Your soulmate sat on the bed once more, not overwhelmed, not trembling, but steady. A steadiness born not of certainty, but of surrender. They finally understood that love like this is not held through control, it is held through willingness. And they were willing. Michael stood at their side, wings half spread like a shield and a doorway all at once. This is the threshold, he murmured. What happens next is not accident. It is arrival. Your soulmate pressed their palm to the sheets where they once imagined you lying beside them, but this time, they didn't imagine. They acknowledged. The connection was no longer an idea, it was a reality waiting for its physical expression. They spoke into the quiet, voice soft but unwavering. I don't need to rush this. I just need to make room for it. And those words changed everything. Because they stopped pleading with destiny and began partnering with it. They weren't hoping you'd choose them, they were choosing the connection without conditions. They weren't waiting for a sign, they were becoming a sign. They weren't asking for proof, they were becoming evidence. This is where most people break. This is where fear tries to convince the heart to retreat. But your soulmate didn't retreat. They leaned in. They leaned into the uncertainty. They leaned into the surrender. They leaned into the truth that whatever this connection is, it is meant to move. To unfold. To manifest. Not through force, but through recognition. Michael leaned closer, his voice brushing the air like wind against skin. Every step from this point is a response. You won't need to chase. You will be guided. They looked around their room, at the items they had laid out the night before, the notes, the trinkets, the small tokens of emotion. They did not feel foolish anymore. They felt reverent. They felt like someone standing inside a prophecy they did not fully understand but could no longer deny. They gathered the items gently, not hiding them away but placing them where they could be seen. Not as reminders of longing, but as reminders of direction. They sat again, back against the wall, knees drawn up, and allowed themselves to feel everything without resisting it. The ache. The desire. The hope. The fear. The excitement. The recognition. The hunger for something that didn't ask to be fed, only honored. And in that emotional stillness, an inner knowing surfaced, clear and sharp as a blade of light. This connection is not asking you to wait. It is asking you to prepare. Preparation does not mean obsession. Preparation does not mean control. Preparation means readiness. They whispered a truth they had been afraid to admit until now. If I am meant to hold you, I want to be ready for you. And that truth rippled outward. Michael placed his hand upon the air, energy moving like a current. And so they will be, he said. Both of you. Because what you feel is not one-sided. What pulls you is not imagined. What returns to your mind without invitation is returning for a reason. The universe does not echo what is empty. It echoes what is charged. Your heartbeat knows the difference. Your chest knows the difference. Your silence knows the difference. There will come a moment, subtle or dramatic, gentle or undeniable, when everything clicks. A message. A meeting. A sentence that changes the air. A timing that makes no rational sense but perfect divine sense. And when that happens, both of you will know. Not because of certainty. Because of recognition. Your soulmate placed both hands over their heart as if holding something sacred and whispered into the space between worlds. I'm not asking for signs anymore. I'm becoming one. And in that moment, the connection shifted from longing to alignment. From ache to awakening. From searching to summoning. Michael's wings rose, not in departure, but in blessing. This is the turning point, he declared. Not when the universe speaks to you, but when you speak back. There is nothing left to chase. Nothing left to fight. Nothing left to prove. Only this truth remains. What is yours is already on its way. Not because you wished for it. Not because you suffered for it. But because at a soul level, you recognized it. And recognition is the beginning of return. If this message resonated deeply, even silently, that's not coincidence. That's connection responding. If you feel called to it, breathe, ground, and whisper. I'm ready for the alignment. Because the second you admit readiness, the universe begins rearranging.